What else? China's silent invasion. And I've been telling you the last couple of days, they're going to use bird flu to remove eggs from part of our diet or something to that effect. I have no idea. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We've got to start with the egg shortage. And this is from California, right? But it seems like it's circling the drain if the drain were us. Like it's getting to us quickly. Maybe not. Are you seeing egg shortages when you go out to the grocery store? It's something to pay attention to. Outbreak update says egg shortages are spreading. Bird flu outbreaks have wiped out millions of birds, and now shelves are going empty in stores across multiple regions. Time to get chickens. Time to get some chickens? Yes. Time to get chickens. Maybe a goat. There's no quota on goats, right? You can have goat's milk. You can have goat feta. Goodness me. Everybody would love pita. It's made with feta and butter and flour and like bread. That's it. Anyway, interesting stuff going on with the eggs. I'm not sure. We'll see how that all plays out. I hope that there's actually no issue and it's just kind of a supply crunch or something like that. But I don't know. It seems like they're definitely trying to use it as an excuse to go after our food systems. Here's a video compilation. Moving on, here's a video compilation from Public Cornelius. And he says, WEF infiltration of Canadian cabinets, all Conservative, Liberal, NDP parties vote PPC, he says. And so this is just clips of video that we've seen before, just as a reminder where everybody sits. Here we go. Too fast. Always too fast. Sorry. Busy all the time. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call it disinformation.
But what we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
I'd also like, Professor, to take a moment to offer my personal congratulations to you on this, the 40th.
This is Stephen Harper now, by the way.
Annual gathering of your creation, the World Economic Forum. You chose as its motto, committed to improving the state of the world. I would observe that few who have set such a lofty goal have more reason to be pleased with their accomplishments. To have conceived of the need for such an institution as this required insight. To have established it took commitment, but to have then nurtured it as a podium from which business and political leaders could nudge public policy by addressing their peers from around the world, that is a formidable achievement, and Professor, this gathering salutes you.
So there you go. Stephen Harper, nose deep, brown nosing clown, Klaus Schwab, and he's the part of the conservative machine passed off to Pierre Poilievre, right? And so is Pierre Poilievre going to be much different than all the other WEF accolades that have been, or all the hangers-on, the WEF hangers-on that have been part of our government for the last 10 years? I don't think so. Here's Liz to remind us what happened during COVID. Liberal Trudeau and conservative Poilievre both voted to 1, sexually mutilate children, 2, unlimited vaccines, 3, unlimited Ukraine funding, 4, zero scandemic accountability. Nobody's calling for holding people accountable for what they did during the COVID lockdowns and forcing vaccinations on people, et cetera, et cetera. 5, climate change scam. He's not talking about how climate change is a scam. 6, WHO pandemic treaty. He's not talking about that. 7, unlimited tax dollars to the United Nations. How will this be different? I'm just so worried. A lot of U.S. people are excited about Pierre Poilievre, and they say, oh, he's going to take over from that globalist Justin Trudeau. And I'm just so worried that he's a globalist too. So hope I'm wrong, right? Hope I'm wrong about all that. Here is Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre, and there's some good clips. I haven't watched this whole thing yet, although you can watch the whole thing. The link is in the description. There's a couple of them. This one is Pierre Poilievre's link, and he's got almost 700,000 views, which is quite respectable. Jordan Peterson's version of the same video has 21 million views. That's half the population of Canada. And I mean, Jordan Peterson's an American, like he's an American pop culture icon at this point, never mind Canadian, right? Jim Carrey's no longer really, right? Is he Canadian? He doesn't live in California. Right? It's one of those things where he's popular, more popular than almost, half the population of Canada is watching. So it just doesn't seem like those are all Canadian numbers, but I digress. It's quite a big number. If you do an interview and you're running for prime minister and you see that 21 million people have watched your interview, like that's good, right? So that's pretty good. Your marketing team is firing on all cylinders if that's the result you're getting, okay? The Post Millennial says, Jordan Peterson asks Poilievre what Canada did wrong as a country. We allowed the globalists to take over. He says that we allowed Trudeau to take over. But here we go. Here's the back and forth.
This has really transpired in large part over the 9 to 10 year period that Trudeau has been governing. And so when you are trying to put your finger on what went so wrong, so calamitously wrong, what do you think the major contributors were? I mean, there's a lot of hydras whose heads we're encountering at the moment, and I imagine it's relatively difficult to trace a causal pathway, but what did we do wrong as a country?
Well, I mean, it doesn't, what I'm about to say is not a shock to anyone. We have a prime minister who is dedicated to a extremely radical ideology. It is just a rehashed socialism that has been discredited again and again and again throughout the ages. And his basically authoritarian socialism has guided him throughout his entire prime ministership. He believes in a state that controls every aspect of your life, your money, your speech, your thought. Controls the economic, all of the industries of the country. Every time that has been tried, it is a complete disaster. So there's no mystery involved. It is the same old disastrous outcome that results from the same old disastrous policies.
Right, that have demonstrated themselves as disastrous continuously throughout the 20th century.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah, well, I've been saying that for years. I've been saying that for years, honestly. Brett says, I just finished watching Jordan Peterson's 1.5 hour interview with Pierre Poilievre. I kept waiting for Peterson to ask about his favorite subject that he brings up in every interview, radical gender ideology, but he never did. Weird, right? So the things that Pierre Poilievre speaks eloquently about and well about, he's right on it. And he's been practicing, he's been drilling. People have tried to trip him up, right? And when they trip him up, they tell him what they tripped him up with. And so he fixes that. I'm sure he's drilling. I'm sure that he's having debate practice daily. I'm sure of it. He's too polished. And I mean, not too polished, but he's practicing. And so that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But he doesn't talk about this. He doesn't talk about this. He says that men won't be allowed into women's bathrooms, right? Women's sports, maybe. But does he know what a woman is? Right? I don't know. I'm worried. I'm worried that he's a globalist. I hope I'm wrong. Here is another Jordan Peterson back and forth. Pierre Poilievre discusses immigration if he's going to be the next prime minister. I think it's important to know his thoughts on this. He says that we have to slow down the numbers and the fraud with the international students and temporary foreign workers and get back to the best system in the world like we had before Trudeau. He also says immigrants can bring their traditions and culture but need to leave their foreign conflicts at the door. Do you think this is a good plan for immigration in Canada? This is, of course, just a brief summary of what he said. Watch his full answer here. So it's 3.5 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but we'll watch some of it. One of the things I want to highlight is I discussed with Schmidthouse the other day about, and it was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it. Actually, the link is in the description if you're interested. It's the Rumble link at the top. So fundamentally, though, I was saying that Trump, when he says mass deportations, he's meaning the illegals who are recently shown up. He's not meaning dreamers. He's not meaning, like, he's not going back to the 80s and getting people out who have been contributing members of the United States for the last 20 years or whatever. He's not talking about that. And oftentimes politicians let you fill in the blanks. They'll give kind of general responses for things and let you fill in the blanks, say things like mass deportations, but they won't define who they're going to mass deport, right? So like, it's one of those things where fundamentally across the West, what's happened has happened. And if we can get back to a gold standard system like we had in Canada at some point in time, unringing the bell of the 4 million, 5 million people that Justin Trudeau let in, very difficult and like take a long, long time. Like, it's one of those things where Trump, I don't know that Trump is going to focus on it. I don't know that Poilievre is going to focus on mass deportations, or if they're going to focus on tightening up the border and, you know, moving forward in a way that is cleaning up the mess through time. But again, it's like a bomb went off and you can't just undo that. Anyway, here is a little bit of this answer. Link is in the description if you want to watch the whole thing.
Crime.
Immigration? What's the scoop there?
Oh, yeah.
Too fast again. Sorry. Immigration. What's the scoop there?
Have to slow down the numbers. There's no doubt about it. We have to end the fraud in the international student and the temporary foreign worker program. We have to.
Well, Canada historically had a very effective immigration policy.
We just have to get back to the best system in the world, which we had for 150 years. Even in the United States, both.
I don't know about that. Like 150 years. There was a situation, like, didn't they send young British people, young British kids, to be kind of pseudo slaves in the prairies during like the late 1800s, the early 1900s? Wasn't there like some terrible, awful things that Canada did? And it's not maybe terrible, awful, but yeah, sending British children to be slaves of farmers in Canada. Slaves is maybe too harsh a word, but still, like, we didn't have the modern immigration system in 150 years or like 100 years ago. Like, that's not how it worked. So it's one of those things where people think, oh yeah, 150 years of the gold standard and Trudeau wrecked it. Well, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of different eras during that period of time, and 150 years is not one continual immigration policy that he's talking about, I don't think. Anyway, back to this for a quick minute.
Both Democrats and Republicans used to say, they'd get up at a microphone and claim they were going to replicate our system because it was an undeniable success. Immigration was not even controversial before Justin Trudeau because it was so well managed here for so long. And we just need to get back to that system. It was clearly
viewed as a net benefit by the immigrants and by Canadians.
Absolutely. Right, and in fact, the support for immigration was strongest in kind of the rural, resource and agricultural communities where the labor was most needed and welcomed.
And again, people bringing in temporary foreign workers to pick fruit and things like that, and him saying, oh yeah, well, everybody loved our immigration system, especially the agricultural guys. I don't know. Again, it's kind of reimagining history a little bit, right? So further discussion is there if you're interested in checking that out. Here is Jordan Peterson. Poilievre says, thanks to Dr. Peterson for taking the time to talk with me about restoring Canada's promise. And Peterson says, Canada's next prime minister. This is just a weird kind. This should be more an invasion. So hold on, I'll move it. Globe and Mail sees how popular Poilievre seems to be, and they're trying to throw water on that. And they say, here's an opinion piece that they've published on January 2nd. Conservatives give in to their worst impulses with their wacko movie on Trudeau. Really? I mean, I thought it was a little light. They could have gone harder, like really, like a lot harder. Marco Mendicino's out. He says, please see my statement. And he's leaving. And in his letter, he takes parting shots at the government for how they're treating Jewish Canadians. So interesting. He says, today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election as the Member of Parliament for Eglinton Lawrence. I will continue to serve out the remainder of the session on behalf of my constituents. It has been the honor of a lifetime to be the MP for this incredible Toronto riding in Parliament for 3 consecutive terms, as well as Minister for 2 portfolios in the federal cabinet. I'm forever grateful for the strong support of my constituents in each of the elections, which we won by decisive margins. However, as much as I love the job, This is the right decision at the right time for me and my family. Yeah, I'll bet. I hear that he wants to go run for mayor somewhere in Toronto against Chow. Anyway, back to this. Some will recall when I initially announced my intention to seek the federal nomination, I was not the preferred choice to be the candidate for the Liberal Party of Canada. As the son of an Italian immigrant family, I learned not to expect any handouts and to fight for what I believe in, including the opportunity to serve. I ran hard, knocked on thousands of doors, and built a strong and positive campaign which put people first. Together, not only did we win a fiercely contested nomination, but we went on to successfully take the seat back in a tough-fought general election. Blah, 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 blah. It's a lot longer than I have any patience for, and I don't really want to read Marco Mendicino's reimagined history of how great he did. So Ryan Garrettson is pointing out that Marco is not seeking re-election. This guy wanted to bring in a tank to clear peacefully protesting Canadians. He was one of the worst Liberal politicians. See ya, you won't be missed. Yep. So, and this is the text messages between Marco Mendicino and Anita Anand. No. Who is the other person that he was texting to get tanks? But he said, you need to get the police to move and the Canadian Armed Forces if necessary. Too many people are being seriously adversely impacted by what is an occupation. I'm getting out as soon as I can. People are looking to you, us, for leadership and not stupid people like Carney, Kath, my team. How many tanks are you asking for? I just want to ask Anita how many we've got on hand. I reckon one will do. So it's a joke. It's real. They're going to send tanks. It's a bad joke if that's what they think a joke is. They shouldn't be in charge of government, really. Mayor Jeremy Levi says most Liberal MPs have already called for Justin Trudeau's resignation, but mark my words, when he moves to prorogue Parliament to cling to power, those same MPs will fall in line without hesitation. This will expose them for what they truly are, spineless opportunists devoid of courage or conviction, willing to betray their own principles to protect their policy or political careers. Watch closely and you'll see a masterclass in hypocrisy and self-preservation at the expense of Canadian democracy. So yeah, it's very interesting. Brett again highlighting this. Pierre Poilievre on triggering an election before Justin Trudeau is replaced as leader. He says, we don't have to wait around for the Liberal Party to get their house in order, basically, which is what I said the other day as well. It seems crazy to ask the Canadian public, like, listen, we've mismanaged our party terribly. And now we need to select a new leader because our current leader's a megalomaniac. So give us a couple of months and we'll come back and run an election that you want, right? No, I don't think so, buddy. Like we can run the election now and you can bring out your derelict team and, lick your wounds a little bit because it doesn't seem like anybody's going to vote for you. Although at the same time, elections are rigged. And so if it was all above board, it'd be more interesting, right? I don't think it's above board. So I think that he's going to win a big supermajority, and it'll be interesting to see how he's going to justify not following through with his promises. Anyway, here's some back and forth talking about the Liberal Party needing to get their house in order.
By the way, the Liberal media is all saying, well, surely you wouldn't want to trigger an election during the Liberal leadership race. Excuse me, the Canadian people are not obliged, 41 million people are not obliged to wait around while this party sorts out its shit. Mm-hmm. Like, these guys could have got rid of Trudeau a year and a half ago. They knew he was a disaster then. And now they say, well, we're low in the polls, so we have to get rid of him. Now, you didn't care when he was just depriving single mothers of food for their kids or doubling housing costs or unleashing crime in neighborhoods across the country. But now you're really concerned about getting rid of him because your poll numbers are down and you want to keep your job. Sorry, that's not a good reason to paralyze the entire country, in the face, by the way, of a major negotiation with the incoming U.S. president, who enters with a massive and powerful mandate, and a man who has proven that he can spot weakness from a mile away.
Well, and anybody looking at Trudeau sees weakness. The whole government is in disarray and collapse. Like, he's not in control of anything, despite him looking like he's calm. It's possibly just because he doesn't understand what's going on, really. Like Biden looks calm too, but I don't think that he knows where he is. Brian Lilly says Trudeau and his government are in crisis. There is no federal leader to respond to the threat from the south of the border, 25% tariffs in T-minus 17 days. We don't really know if Trudeau is still in charge. Uncertainty is the only certainty right now. So Truth, yeah. National Post is reporting expect a court challenge if Justin Trudeau puts Parliament on pause. This guy is just, I don't know about this. I think that basically if Parliament can do it and they can pass it, then it's de facto legal. And this guy is saying, well, I don't know if it's legal. And I wish that I had challenged Stephen Harper in 2008 because then we'd know. And like the fact that Harper got away with it in 2008, says that it's legal. And if Justin Trudeau prorogues, I don't know if there'll be a mechanism to force a confidence vote or force any kind of government to fall. Here's just a little bit of this. Prime Minister Trudeau should get ready to go to court if he prorogues Parliament to dodge an expected non-confidence vote in January, says one legal activist. Duff Conachar, head of Citizens Group Documentary Watch, says he'll be keeping a close eye on the Prime Minister's actions in the coming days. Democracy Watch will consider filing a court challenge if the Prime Minister asks the Governor-General to prorogue Parliament at a time when it's clear that the prorogation is a self-interested move to protect the interests of the Liberal Party by preventing a majority of MPs from voting non-confidence in the government, Conachar said in an email to the National Post Tuesday. Conachar said he regrets not filing a court challenge to stop Stephen Harper's late 2008 shutdown of Parliament, which he called a perfect situation for the courts to rule on whether such a prorogation is legal. He'll still have precedent to point to following a recent United Kingdom decision putting a cap on British Prime Minister's use of prorogation. Still, it's interesting. We'll see if Trudeau is able to prorogue Parliament. And if he is, well, then I guess we sit around and wait because nothing happens, but Justin Trudeau stays in charge and all of his policies remain in place for them to be exploited until he's removed, right? And then the policy holes are filled. And Unaccepted Canadian Girl says, don't worry, everyone. Politicians will save us. And here's Danielle Smith dancing. Do you remember when George W. Bush danced and everybody not lost their minds, but everybody was kind of like, oh, well, you look like an idiot. Here is Danielle Smith dancing and just like weird, right? Here we go. Is it worth it for the votes? Is it worth it for the votes? I just don't think so. If somebody's like, listen, we want you to dance on this stage for the next 5 minutes, and we promise we're not going to record you. And then, like, you can see the cameras, right? So you're like, well, I'm being recorded. Anyway, even if they promise not to record me, I still don't think I'd do this. I'd be like, we can have a board meeting. We can discuss problems that you may want me to address, but I'm not dancing with you on stage. Like, what's the purpose of this? Ray says, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith grooving to the beats of Bangara at a local event. Weird. No thanks. Can we just get back to governance rather than pandering and weird dancing? And when people in Alberta see that, are they like, yeah, that's great. Like, super great. That's super awesome. Like, I like to see her dancing with all those people. Like, no, I don't think so. But let me know, Alberta. Are you guys excited about Danielle Smith and her dancing with different ethnic groups for reasons? I don't know. It seems like pandering to me. Here's again, Poilievre. We're talking about tax money and wasting tax dollars, et cetera, et cetera. And Kevin says $61 billion deficit, $6,000 per family spent in deficit overspending on top of having the highest taxes in the world. Poilievre lays out Canada's fiscal incompetence.
So I want to turn back to some numbers. The deficit this year was $61 billion.
That was last year's deficit.
Last year. And there's 40 million people in Canada. And so that's $1,500 per person federal overspending. And that's $6,000 essentially per family. So just for everybody watching and listening, your federal government spent $6,000 of your family's money last year going over their budget. That's just what they spent in excess of what they had originally budgeted. Right.
And that's on top of having among the highest taxes in the world, with our 53% highest marginal tax rate, plus carbon tax, plus high payroll taxes, plus high business taxes, plus high capital gains taxes. So they're taking in more money than ever before. They've squeezed the taxpayer out of every last dime, and they're still $62 billion short.
Right.
And that's just one level of government, by the way. Then the
Right.
provinces have deficits that compound the federal one. So we have way too much government, and we need to reduce the size and cost of government and unleash the power of the free market.
Fingers crossed, free market. Ooh. FRN says the richest people per capita in terms of GDP per person is Ontario, and Ontarian habitants are now poorer per capita than the habitants of Mississippi, and that's the poorest American state. Peterson with Poilievre on the dismal wealth disparity between Canada and the U.S. We're not keeping up, and we really should be. Sam Cooper is highlighting this, and John Ibbotson says, I never thought I'd see a former clerk of the Privy Council speaking so openly and brutally about a federal government and a sitting prime minister who is looking out for Canada's interests. And so this is a Globe and Mail piece that is taking a torch to Justin Trudeau and his awful policies. And Cooper, and because I don't have Globe and Mail, I can't read it to you, so sorry. And Cooper says, the government, this is a quote from the article though, the government has squandered our fiscal advantage, hollowed out our military, shattered our immigration system, and shown little interest in our anemic productivity while economic, geopolitical, and security threats to Canada rise to DEFCON levels. So we've got terrorists in the street who are terrorizing neighborhoods, and Justin Trudeau is worried about Islamophobia, right? So like it's a bit much, and yeah, that's a problem. It's a big problem, and it doesn't seem well. Do you think Poilievre is going to fix it? We'll see. Holly Doan says, mortgage fraud and money laundering worse despite federal laws dating from 2020. New anti-fraud rules take effect on October 1st, 2025. The Canadian real estate market has been identified as a sector highly vulnerable to money laundering. I'm shocked. I'm super duper shocked. I can't believe that Canada is a sector highly vulnerable to money laundering. My gosh. No. The heck you say? Greg says, update 1 of 8. On Tuesday, I posted about Lion Electric, an electric bus manufacturer in Saint Jerome, Quebec that receives $49.5 million in federal taxpayer subsidies and later filed for bankruptcy, resulting in the complete loss of those public funds. So that's a lot of money to $49 million bucks, right? Jeepers creepers. Tax dollars too. And they get to take that out in the form of stocks and things and then sell those stocks. Pretty wild stuff, right? They don't believe in their company, or they believe in it so much and they're shocked when it goes bankrupt, right? Good thing they made $30 million bucks with the sale of the stock, right? So here is number 2. CEO Mark Bedard walked away wealthy, selling his shares after the influx of government cash, but before the bankruptcy. This is pump and dump, pump the taxpayer for funding and dump the shares at a significant profit. Lion received the funds August 21, filed for bankruptcy December 24. Thanks to crowdsourcing information, readers have added some interesting details. The shares sold by Mr. Bedard totaled $33 million. See chart below detailing his insider trading between August 21st and August 23. The largest shareholder of Lion Electric was the Desmarais family, residual trust with 34% of shares, and Andy Lee found that. The Desmarais were, I'm getting that terribly bad, I'm sorry. I'm getting that terribly wrong, excuse me, I'm sorry, are among the Canada's wealthiest with close ties to the Liberal Party and senior Liberal insiders, including Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Jean Chrétien, and Paul Martin. Greg continues, another major shareholder in Lion is Michel Ringuet with 1.1 million shares. Is on the board. Ringuet is on the board of Lion and also on the investment committee at Cycle Capital Management. So that's Galbo, right? The founder and managing partner of Cycle Capital is a close associate of, who else? Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault from 10 years as a strategic advisor and current shareholder at Cycle Capital. Miss Mitho is on Canada Infrastructure Bank Board, which plans to spend $1.5 billion of tax dollars on electric buses, many of which coincidentally were made by Lion. Ms. Minot also sat on the disgraced board of Sustainable Development Technology Canada, which gave millions of tax dollars in ineligible grants to board members' own companies, allegedly including $200 million to Cycle Capital. You need a spreadsheet to sort out how taxpayer funds are circling around Liberal insider circles, but believe me, you couldn't just make this stuff up. Pretty crazy stuff, right? And that's a lot of money being sloshed around. Keeping people quiet, keeping people on board, making sure that everybody maintains their grip on power, because if not, everything comes crashing down, right? And Ely says, this is all going to unravel and become the biggest insider trading scandal of our lifetime. Mark my words. we're figuring it out. So this is this is more Lion Bus stuff. And XPND Capital, Lion Bus announcement, strategic investment by XPND Capital. Investment aims to support commercialization of the first 100% electric school bus fleet. And then the investment follows the recent announcement by Quebec government of a $2 million subsidy to Lion Bus for commissioning of 6 E-Lion buses. The phase intends to demonstrate and validate the bus functional parameters, represents the final step before deployment of the company's commercial production strategy. So they never got past the testing phase. They never had commercial viability. It was never there, but they were getting lots and lots of money from the government, our money, and then just gone, poof, gone. See you later, $50 million, right? At least it wasn't 50 billion, like the battery plants. Alberta strong. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful